Hi, I'm Ron Nutter, and welcome to another edition of Tech Bites with Ron Nutter. This time I'm going to show you how to build the foundation of your own smart home toolkit. And that starts now. Well, this is something that probably wouldn't be at the top of anyone's list. And to be honest, it wasn't really on mine because I thought, I've got plenty of tools. Well, when you start getting into a troubleshooting situation, you find out that you don't have everything you thought you had, or there's something that yet you don't have. So we're going to go through a few of the tools that are in my own toolkit, and plus some ones that you might not have thought about. Now, the foundation for any good toolkit is you're going to have some sort of bag to keep it all together. Now, I'll be the first to say, yeah, I've got a drawer. I'll keep it in that drawer. Well, if you go to help a friend or you forget, I'll put it in this drawer for now, I'll come back and deal with it later. You've got to have a central place you're going to put all your tools, or you're going to be replacing some of them like I had to do recently because I couldn't find them. I know I had them, and they're in a safe place. Just haven't found the last place I looked yet. So the first thing that you want to look at having, and you've probably heard of this before, is the iFixit Toolkit. This one has saved me several times. Now, it's got a lot of stuff in here, and let's get it opened up. And it may be overkill degree. Now, it's got some stuff in here for smartphones. It's got, if you need to do a screen removal, there is a anti-static strap up in here. There's some tools in here. There's a spudger. There's some... if you need to pry something open, there's a nice little prying tool that is insulated so you won't have to run the risk of possibly shorting something out. And, I mean, it's a little bit of even little wedge pieces in here that you can use for a variety of things. Now, this part right here is the one you'll probably use more than anything else, but for the difference in price, you're just as well to get the whole kit. Because I looked at trying to piece part it. Now, the big thing you get is when you buy this as a part of it, is you get a little metal plate on the back of the main toolkit, and that stays right here. So that's going to help keep it in place. Now, this is the part that, let me see if I can get a better light on it. It's all these bits. You may not use once of them in a few years, but when you need them, as they say, is priceless. There's several specialized bits in here between the Apple smartphones, other devices. It's all these smaller bits, and they're made out of a very high grade of steel. You really can't get a lot better than this. And trust me, I love collecting tools, and this one is really, it's well worth it. So there's a link to it in the description. Now, nice little sorter lid here, so when you are taking screws out of something, you can kind of keep them separated to a degree. And it's got little magnets here in the bottom so that when you put this back together, the lid stays on. There's no clasp you got to worry about. And then the plate that we talked about here attaches right to this. And as you can see, I'm holding it from the case, and that's staying taut. So that is, and I've also got it now, I realize, upside down, but we can fix that very quickly. But this is something that having a good toolkit should be the foundation of anything. Now, there's some other things we need to look at. And let's dig a little bit here. Well, the first thing among any of the tools, and you've seen me talk about, well, I'm going to pull them both out at the same time. There's a couple of specialized cable testing tools you're going to need to have. So as with anything, with more and more stuff hooking up with HDMI, you're going to need to have a tester like this that's going to test both ends of the cable, because sometimes cables do go bad. I had a long, rather tense conversation with a certain satellite company when my receiver quit working. And I went through all the steps that I knew about, and the receiver will get to a certain point in its booting process and then stop. Well, the satellite provider blamed my TV, and I'm going, really? This is where you're going? Come to find out, it was a bad cable, because that was the one thing I hadn't swapped out. And I've since got rid of that cable, but this verified after the fact that I had everything, that the cable was the problem. So that's why generally I will keep some spare HDMI cables around too. Now, with some of your devices also needing to be on a hardwire connection, you'll want a tester something like this. Now, this does split into two separate pieces. So if you've had a cable you've had to run through the walls, you can put the remote on one end, this on the other, and you can completely check that cable end to end. And cables do go bad. Usually with me, I found it's around the RJ45 head, but some cables, depending on where you've had to bend or how much pulling you did with them, the damage could be in the middle of the cable. Years ago, I was working for a data service provider, and I had to drive out of state. And I found the problem within 15 minutes with a little fancier version of this. The electrician, when he was staple gunning, and yes, I did say staple gunning, the cable to the wall, he managed to short out two connections, or two of the wires in there. So something like this can help save a little bit of headache for you. Keep digging into the bag of goodies here. And with some of these tools I've shown you, they have to run on batteries. Okay, let's face it. How often do we check our batteries? Well, I'm guilty as anybody else. I don't check it as much as I should. Now, a trick I use as much as I can, if I've got a battery I'm not going to need for a while, and some batteries you can't do this with, but most of the 9-volt AA's and so on, you can do this with, is put them in the freezer. And, you need to let them thaw out a little bit, but that will prolong their life by several years if they are used infrequently. Now, if you didn't do that, or you've got a battery that's laying around, you're not sure how it is, a tester like this will be a good indication. Now, it doesn't require any batteries, and that's the plus. So it does need a little bit of power out of the battery. But if you put the battery in here and the display doesn't even flicker, you pretty much got a good indication that battery's dead. And it will take a variety of batteries. It will do AA, AAA, C, D. It's got contacts for 9-volt up here. Let me get it over here. You can see it a little bit better. It's got contacts for the 9-volt battery here. So this is something, this is a few dollars on Amazon. So it's well worth having in your bag of tricks. Now, at some point, when you start plugging things into the wall, you may have an outlet problem. And this particular outlet tester is one I've had for several years, and it's a little bit, there's two versions of these you'll find out there. There's the one you can plug into the wall, and they give you up to three lights depending on where it sees the problem, either open ground, there's, I forget all that, let me look here. There's open ground, open neutral, hot neutral reversed, hot ground reversed, open hot, line neutral, or live neutral reverse. Basically, anything other than the top row shows up, you probably want to get an electrician involved unless you really know what you're doing. And that's one area where I draw the line. If I do not have experience in that area, as much as I hate paying for professional help, it's sometimes a cheaper way to go. Now, this one, like I said, is a little bit different. This one has a test button on the bottom. So if you're plugging this into a GFI outlet, you can force the GFI outlet to trip. And that's something that is very important regardless of whether you've got something for your smart home plugged into or not. You need to know that GFI outlet is going to trip. And if you're not familiar with what a GFI outlet is, basically you normally will only find them near a sink or some sort of water source. So in the event it senses that power starts flowing over where it shouldn't, this will shut off that outlet, hopefully minimizing a little bit of a nasty electrocution. Now, the next thing, trying to make sure we don't miss anything because I got quite a few things in the bag of tricks here. We're going to go back to HDMI land for a little bit. Now, you've already seen the cable tester I've got. Well, sometimes you may have a problem with one device at one end or the other not passing the signal that it should, or the signal's not making it through the cable. And this little tester breaks down, can I get that? No, I really can't. It breaks down the signaling. So, I would suggest using this before you really need it, so you know what it should look like and be familiar with the way it's going to react on the equipment that you have, so you can use this basically as a baseline to know when you've got a problem, and at least it helps you talk to the technical support people a little bit better. Now, in knowing how to find USB problems, because some of these devices, like the Open Media Vault NAS or SAM we just set up, knowing how things are connecting into your network, you need to know if the connection's good, if you're getting an IP address. And this is something, this is a USB Type-C to gigabit Ethernet. Now, I bought this one specifically for my smartphone. That's right, you heard me, I said smartphone. I've got my Galaxy S9 Plus, and by turning on some options, and if you're interested, I'll do a video on this showing exactly how I got this to work. Basically, you turn on a couple of USB options within this, and I basically put the phone into airplane mode. I could then plug my phone into the network, and I found the best tool I've been able to come up with. You can verify IP address. There's several things you do. So you can treat your phone just like it's a laptop, so you don't have to lug the laptop around. So this is a handy little thing to have. There are, depending on your phone, you may need to get like a different USB connector. And if you've got an Apple, you kind of got limited options. And I've got an S6 Plus. I mean a 6 Plus. So I will eventually look for an adapter for that. But unfortunately, Apple has crippled things so much. I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to find. Now, and one other thing here, we've also got, like I said, a lot of things in this box. This is something, and you notice I've been big on Pelican cases. This is from a company called NetTool.io. Now, this, if you're doing a lot of wired networking, you may want to look at this one. This is a little more advanced device. You can get into all sorts of duplex resolution. There's ARPing, address resolution protocol. Basically, if you've not dealt with some of this, you may not need this. And this may be all you really need to have. But for that next step up, this is the tool to have. And I could do a whole review on this one just because there's several things that it's handy. The company's been very good. I've had this for about 2 years now, and they're still releasing firmware updates for it. So between that and this, you've got a good idea for your smartphone because there is a companion application for this. Now, you mentioned about USB, and this is something that is, I had a hard time finding a device I really liked until I came across this one from Klein Tools. And in full disclosure, they did send this one for me to look at. Trust me, it's well worth adding to your bag of tricks because it has both the normal USB you're used to seeing as well as the USB Type-C. And this becomes more and more important because you've got to know if voltage is passing, if it's coming from the source, and what's being presented to the target device. So you can go through a lot of different variations. It's got a nice little display to it. And if you're like me, I have a tendency when I see the card on behind this in a blister pack or something, this hits the trash can. I don't look at it. Don't let this happen because there's all sorts of good information in here. That's something you really need to keep handy. Hence why I got the big blue bag here to keep all that with me because this is something that's going to have a lot of lifetime to it. There's all sorts of information, and I really am going to think about doing a video on this one because it's well worth it. It's a little more expensive than some of the USB power voltmeters you'll find, but trust me, this is well worth it. And Klein is a name that I really didn't expect to see this from Klein because they're primarily a physical tool company, screwdrivers, hammers, that kind of thing. And I know they've got more than that. That was just my impression of it, and this definitely set that different. So this is something that really probably should be one of the first things you get if you're looking in the USB arena. Now, one other thing, and this is something that I have kind of thrown in at times, sometimes you're working in a less than ideal environment, or if you've got your laptop handy, this USB laptop light, I got it at some trade show, and haven't needed it yet, but it's one of those things that if you get some of this swag at some of these trade shows, this is something good to have in your bag of tricks. So we've talked about a lot in this video. This has been more kind of a talking head video, but we really needed to go over some of the tools that I've been using in my own personal bag of tricks. And as you do more and more things with your smart home, such as I'm getting into working with the Habitat, and there's videos probably coming in about a week on that one. There, with the Open Media Vault that we've done several videos on, having a way to do some basic testing. We'll make sure if your batteries in a device, if it uses them, make sure they're all right, because sometimes the devices don't always do a good job at telling you when they're going to work or not. So it's been a real brief overview of the different kinds. Obviously, I've got some videos I need to go do showing you, how to hook this up and how I've worked with it, giving a little more information about the Klein USB digital meter, and I can see probably a few ones we need to look at. But anyway, thank you for your time. Everybody subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate what you did on doing that one. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you can't give it a thumbs up, please let me know why, because I want to produce content that's going to be helpful to you and help you get that much more enjoyment out of your smart home. I'm trying to produce about 2 to 3 videos a week. Anytime that I mention something in the video, I'll have links in the show notes. That will be, those are affiliate links. I do get a small commission. That doesn't change your price on what you buy, just helps you a little with the cost of things that I've been acquiring. There are all sorts of possibilities that we can go with in terms of a smart home. If you have anything particular you'd like me to look at, please let me know. I'd be glad to add that to my list and help you get that much more enjoyment out of it. There is a podcast also that's basically the audio track of this YouTube video that you can get to. It's available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, you name it. It's on pretty much a majority of the distribution networks. And just trying to make it available. And it's also an Amazon Flash Briefing. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you in the next video.